Lon.
Yep. Hey, everybody. My name is Ben Gromyko. I'm from InterNACHI. That's the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. And we're doing a Zoom meeting, an InterNACHI webinar with some of my best friends here. All my friends are home inspectors, by the way. The best people to hang out with. We have Jim Krumm, Lon Henderson, and Ray Kline. They're all InterNACHI certified professional inspectors, and they're also InterNACHI, certified master inspectors. That's CMI. That's the best of the best. So for this webinar, we're going to talk about tools of the trade. What tools a home inspector should have, maybe from the simplest basic thing like a flashlight to some complicated, expensive things. And essentially, don't freak out when you grab a tool as a home inspector. The word flashlight doesn't even appear in the standards of practice. So if you're using a flashlight, you're exceeding the standards of practice. But don't be scared. The GFCI tester, right? It's GFCIs are required to be tested during a home inspection, but the tester isn't required. So really, it's up to the home inspector to choose what tools works best for their business. And sometimes you need a tool that's going to work for your ancillary inspections. And maybe we'll talk about ancillary inspections and tools like superscope inspections as well. So if you are attending this live webinar, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to monitor the chat and the QA button. So if there's something on your side that looks like a question and answer button or a chat button, feel free to ask questions and I'll interrupt the fellas as they talk about their tools. So who's up first? Who wants to talk about their tools? All right, Lon, take it away.
Okay, so a couple of things. One of the things, talk about the basics. Just, you know, if you're a newbie in the business or just getting started, as Ben was mentioning, you can actually do an inspection and not use any tools at all and follow our standards of practice. But most of us will go beyond the standards of practice. It's just the way it is, and that's what most home inspectors do. So tools to get started with, in my opinion, you need a screwdriver. I have one of these, you know, 7-in-1 type screwdriver things, has a nut drivers on it, open up things with. And of course, in our standards of practice, not much that we have to open up, but in the real world, we're typically pulling the covers off of furnaces, for instance, and pulling the covers off of electric panels, although in Ohio, you don't do that. But nevertheless, most of us, again, are going to, and I like a big screwdriver, flathead screwdriver for leverage. Also, it's my probe. In fact, just yesterday was stabbing some rotted wood in some window frames. Getting a message on my phone right now for an inspection later today. Just a knife for, you know, sometimes you just need one to cut, trim something or whatever, or the old two-prong outlets or something else, just a little simple 2-wire circuit tester. Always need a pair of pliers for something. I was taking a water hose off a faucet, a bib, a couple of days ago just to put my pressure meter on it. Of course, 3-light tester with the GFCI tester. That's a very common one. I probably have 5 of these around because they seem to break. And then a flashlight, and I am a geek on flashlights. I probably have 8 in my car. This has by far and away become my favorite. By the way, Inspector Outlet at InterNACHI has the best price on this. It's the Phoenix TK35UE. This thing is like crazy bright. I think something like 3,000 lumens on its brightest setting. It's expensive. But I like a good flashlight. In my opinion, the minimum flashlight is 1,000 lumens. I just don't know how you can see things with less than 1,000 lumens. And today, flashlights are small, compact, and bright. And then for my 22 years doing so, I used the same electrician's tool belt. This is the same one I've had for my entire 22 years that carry this stuff in. I know some guys stick it in their pockets and things like that, and that's great, but this is what works good for me, is a simple tool belt. Now, and the other thing that's kind of basic is a ladder. I use a little giant. I know lots of guys like the telescopers, everybody to their own, but I've had this same little giant again for 22 years. I did the math on it a few years ago. I had opened and closed it something like 35,000 times. That's what I like. I like a little tarp to put underneath attic openings, so because stuff always falls out. Some guys use little cordless vacuum cleaners. That's pretty good too. But something to catch the stuff that falls out when you look up in an attic. And then for crawl spaces, I recommend some kind of coveralls. Tie back coveralls are good. These are just cloth. Works for me. I love, again, you sound like I'm doing an Inspector Outlet commercial here, but these crawl space crawling gloves, I think they're like 35, 40 bucks. They're worth 5 times as much. Best thing I ever got. I love these gloves for crawl spaces. And knee pads. There's always something sharp on the surface of a crawl space, even if it's got a vapor barrier on it or something. There just seems to be stuff there. So love a knee pads for crawl spaces. I think that kind of is a good basic start for you. That's not a lot of investment, not spending a lot of money. Now, going beyond all that good stuff, we can get into other things like a gas sniffer. Once again, available on Inspector Outlet at a great price. This particular one is the Tippy 775. It measures both natural gas and carbon monoxide. So it's a twofer. I like mine so well that I have 2 of them so that when one's being recalibrated, I have the other one for use. Love that thing. Little simple laser thermometer. These things are cheap, like 20 bucks. The measuring tape, both for your use and also clients are always wanting to measure something. How big's the refrigerator opening? You can hand them a tape, make them happy. Moisture meter. This is a Trimax, also available on Inspector Outlet. This is I've had this same one for 20 years or so. Nice little unit. In fact, I found a wet spot in a wall just a couple of days ago, or a ceiling a couple of days ago. Other little things. I'm checking the water pressure in a house. And you know, the stuff we're talking about right now, definitely beyond our SOP, but I've found probably half the houses that I inspect will have water pressures out of line, which basically, at least around here, we want between 60 and 80 PSI. And in the last week, I had one that was 140. I like checking the water pressure. Checking the microwave, and you'll see the little InterNACHI emblem on that. They have these for easy price. It has a little LED, like I think really cheap. An LED has LED lights in it, and so the microwaves will excite the gases in the LEDs, and it will glow, telling you that the microwave is working. So it's a nice tool for checking the microwave, and your clients really love it. They just, for whatever reason, they think that is really something. So that's kind of some of the basics. One little thing, I like carrying some painter's blue tape with me. For instance, a couple of days ago, I had several outlets that were reverse polarized. It was easy just to pull a stick of blue tape off and stick it on the outlet cover so that when I write my report, I'm not having to describe the exact location of the reverse polarized outlet. I just say, look for the blue tape. And another place I love this is a gas leak. Just pull off a strip of blue tape, wrap it where the gas leak was, and now you don't get that call from public service, hey, I'm having trouble finding that gas leak. Just go to the blue tape. So I like those things for that. Little other couple of little things like IR, infrared, getting to be very popular. So have an infrared camera, getting to be, it has been very popular. A lot of guys offer this as an add-on service. It's useful. I had a hydronic warm water heat system a couple of days ago. How sweet it is to walk around seeing how well the radiators are working with this. And I found one that was not working properly, and this made it easy. That makes a nice photo and looks good in the report. And then, if you're in one of those areas where they do radon testing, that's a great add-on service. In a lot of states, you have to get certified to do radon testing. That's easy to do, and what do you know? InterNACHI has a great class on that. I use mostly the Sun Nuclear 1027s. I do have a Corinthian Pro. There's, you can get 1028s and 1030s in the Sun Nuclear. And then there's subscription services for radon where you don't have to make the major investment in the units, and you just basically rent your instruments from the subscription service. So, but it's a nice add-on, value added, so to speak, service if it's something that is appropriate where you are. Here in Colorado, radon, big deal. And so I am doing a lot of radon testing and making a little extra money off of that. And then binoculars, useful. The headlamp for crawl spaces. I actually have about 6 of these. I have one that's like 1,500 lumen, great thing. Then the little funny little things are like taking a folding chair with you. The vacant houses with furniture. I pull out 3 vacant chairs, one for the realtor, if the realtor's there, and 2 for the clients. 2 things about it: they love it, and secondly, they don't feel compelled to, be hanging on my shoulder the time. So they can relax in the chairs, and I can do my thing. So that just kind of a PR thing, but people like it. 2 covers for walking around in houses, or slippers. Also, towels. Always bring some towels. Things happen. Vacant house. You turn on the dishwasher, and son of a gun, the starts leaking, and you got a little pool of water there. Got some towels to mop it up. Something like that. It's good. And then, having a drill of some kind, occasionally taking a few screws loose to get into something like a attic crawl space access are often screwed shut, and I will take those loose to get in. So that's some of the basics that, or not basics, but the basics plus that I use as I'm going about doing things.
That's awesome, Lon. I think the blue tape was brilliant because during walkthroughs on a new house with a building supervisor and the homeowner, they always want those little cosmetic items, and touching the wall here or touching the trim there or the windowsill there. and not damaging what you want to mark is a great one. And the camping chairs. How about a battery vacuum? Do either one of you carry like a little handheld vacuum to sweep stuff up?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, yep.
Along with the broom and a dustpan.
Gregory says he carries 2 tape measures, one for himself and one for the client to use as a backup. So that's a good tip there. And
Can
Jamie,
I bring up something on tape measures?
what's that?
Okay, on tape measures.
Yeah.
Ace Hardware has them for almost free at Christmas time. I buy 30 or 40 because invariably you'll have somebody at the inspection and the agent's like, oh, we'd like to measure this. I don't have a tape measure. I just give them the tape measure. They cost me like $2.99, and you know, I have a ton of them in my truck, and I just hand them, and it's something they remember you by. It's like, hey, they gave me a tape measure. They don't know it costs $2.
That's right. That's right. It's that gift that counts. It's the idea, that the thought that counts. Jamie asks, when's InterNACHI coming out with a fiberglass roof camera pole? So I think Ray, a long time ago, Ray, you were trying to design something with the sources from Home Depot instead of
right here that I use.
There you go.
This is an aluminum pole, so it can conduct electricity.
Yeah.
But it is a painting pole. It goes up to 22 feet. And I fastened my camera to the top. I used it in video mode. And I videotape those roofs that are too steep or too high to walk.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. Somebody got fatally hurt a while back. Not using Inspector Outlet's pole, but Inspector Outlet was considerate enough to just pull that off of their item, off of their store, off of their shelf. So it was a good idea until someone designs something that's non-conductive. I think it's, you got to be careful out there. So if you're going to make one, maybe make one out of plastic or non-conductive material. Gregory says, instead of using the InterNACHI microwave detector tester, use a plastic cup and fill it with water. It could, I also just grab a paper towel, put it under the sink, throw it in there, 30 seconds, it's steaming. So it's one of the other ways if you don't have a tester. Jim, I think you're up next. You want to go?
Yes, I'm going to start. I'm going to try not to cover most of the stuff Lon covered, but we all use similar things in a different way. This here is called a sure shot. Since InterNACHI took down the spectroscope, we use this with a completely fiberglass painter stick. You can either use your Wi-Fi, or it also has a tether on here like a dog leash. And so in Colorado, we have a lot of no-fly zones where we can't use a drone. Mm-hmm. New homes, a lot of times they won't let me on the roof, so we use that. So there is still some options out there. They actually make it so it'll tilt and do a lot of things, but we use this a couple times a week. Here's something that InterNACHI or Inspector Outlet sells. It's a body cam. We will not enter a house without a body cam. We have a very nice video of one of my guys getting bit by the seller's dog. The seller's dog that was supposed to be so nice and friendly ripped a chunk out of his leg. When they tried to say he was being mean to the dog, it was all on video. So my suggestion is get a body cam. They're not that expensive. We have a separate backup hard drive that we store all of our body stuff. So again, like Lon, the camera or the flashlights, you can get them. These are the best. This one's probably 4 or 5 years old. It's still going strong. I pretty much quit using any other flashlight. It is the best. You need a voltage stick. Whenever we go in the attics or crawl spaces, we bring this. So if any abandoned wiring, we can check if it's alive. Remember, you're still going to write it up as disconnected, possibly abandoned wiring, because it may be on a light switch. But, you know, that way you also know if it's safe for you to walk through. Ferret. And I'm not selling tools, but this here, it's on a telescope. It's 7 feet long. I use it to check siding cap flashings above windows. Invariably, James Hardy is installed incorrectly. So with that, I can see if they've caulked the cap flashings, if I have a 1/4 inch gap. With LP Smart Sight, it's supposed to be 3/16 or 3/8. So we check all of those, and then we take a picture when it's wrong. Don't leave home without this. This is our electrical tester. And now, as you get in the business, it's kind of hard to buy everything. We have at least 2 of everything in the truck. But every 2.5 years, you'll let the smoke out of this. You'll plug it in and it'll smoke. The capacitors go bad. You want to be able to go out to your truck and grab a second one. So you do need to have redundancy. This is the little infrared we use for checking like floors, things like that. We have a very good infrared that we take out of the safe and use it when we're doing an infrared scan. But this, as Lon says, if you want to check if the floor is heating, if the baseboards are heating, these work awesome. We bring the CO gas leak detector. It's dual purpose. We bring just a gas leak detector, and we bring just a carbon monoxide leak detector. Again, redundancy. If I see something, I want to have 2 testers show it, because then nobody can really accuse me of being wrong. Couple of electrical testers. We check every 240 outlet, make sure it's correct. This is something that most of you won't have, but you should. Lineman's gloves. Years ago, one of my guys opened a dead front cover to a big flash. The service wires were warped and rubbed a hole, and just by him moving the dead front cover, there was this huge arc. If Carlos hadn't been wearing lineman's gloves and glasses, he probably would have been dead, or at least severely burnt. So they're not that expensive. Always put on gloves and glasses when you go into a panel. It's the only safe thing to do. I'm going to scan around here a little bit on some of the specialty, but I'm a big story guy. So we're going to talk about my last week. Your most important tool, besides you, is your work vehicle. It is what brings you safely to the inspection and safely home. After this, I want you to go out and look at your work vehicle and decide if you can survive an accident. We lucked out, and in February, I used to drive Yukons, Suburbans. I was always going to put a bulkhead in, and I never did. All of my tools were in the back, and they were organized in drawers, but, you know, we saw a Suburban come down from skiing that rolled over, and there were ski boots and skis all over the highway. I don't know if anybody survived or didn't survive. When we saw that, I ordered a new truck. So I ordered a pickup, crew cab, all the bells and the whistles. It showed up during the COVID. We put a slide bed. All of our tools are in the bed. There is nothing in the seats anymore. Last Monday, we were sitting at a stoplight and we're rear-ended. The truck was going approximately 50 miles an hour, and it destroyed my new truck. It bent the frame. The bed just basically blew up with all the tools shifting around. If those tools had been inside the truck, I'm not sure we would have survived. As it was, nobody was injured. Look at your car, your truck. Will my ladder stay placed? What do you have loose? We used to have chargers in the back seat. You know, think about them. A lithium battery coming at 40 miles an hour is like a bullet. If it hits you in the back of the head, you are probably not going home that night. So you need to think about that. Whether it's a rollover, a rear end, maybe you caused the accident and rear end somebody else. You know, look at your car, your truck, and make sure that you can survive, because
Jim.
you know your family wants you to come home.
Hey, Jim, you said the term bulkhead. I just want to make sure that everybody understands what that is. You're talking about like a partition between...
A partition between the where you store your tools and where your passenger are.
Right.
They make fabric ones that I wouldn't trust. You can buy metal bulkheads that are like the post office uses, Amazon, things like that. You know, that way it'll stop that ladder. It'll stop, you know, anything coming forward, it hits that, shatters and falls. So you want to have a partition between you and your tools. So done preaching on that, but think about it, because, you know, we lose a few inspectors every year. We don't want to lose inspectors. Now, Lon brought up ladders. I'm a little different than Lon. We have 5 ladders in our truck. We have a 13, we have a 17, we have a 23-foot Little Giant. Then we have 2 telescoping. We replace our ladders every 2 years. Our most used ladders we replace every year. I figure it's cheap insurance. You know, I used to sell them at garage sales. I have a cousin in who's roofing. He knows somebody was sued by doing that because somebody got hurt on a ladder he sold. So now we just scrap them. So cost of doing business, a ladder's a couple $100 for a good ladder. You know, the more the merrier. One ladder won't always be the safest. You know, sometimes a telescoping is safer than an articulating. So buy the good ladders. Because of the COVID, life has changed. We've bought InterNACHI booties for years. We found these now on Amazon. It's $10.99 for 2. They're washable. We get about 10 inspections out of it. We now have 15 booties for every inspector. He changes his booties just like his uniform at every inspection. We do not go into somebody's house with a pair of booties that has been into another house since it was washed. So we change our clothes, shoes, everything is changed. The mask, of course. Wet wipes. We have a sanitation protocol that we wipe everything down going in. We wipe everything down coming out. We advertise our protocol. You need to do what you can to keep everybody safe right now. Things like that. You know, I don't want to bring COVID from one house into another house. That would be a terrible thing. I also take off all my clothes, except for my underwear, of course, in the garage, and we let them sit in the garage until the weekend. That way things kind of settle down. If there is some problems with those, that, you know, where I came from, I'm not tracking it through my house. So think about that. Now I'm going to just kind of scan around a little bit on some of these tools, more the specialties type stuff. Lon and I both use the same radon equipment. What I've done is I've put a tripod on. Camera. When it's fully extended, it is 22 inches. And our PP guidelines is it has to be at least 20 inches off the ground. I have had many times where a seller has accused us of having an improper radon test, saying that it is not at the right height. I always take a picture in my report. There it is. We use bags for our inspection. Now with the COVID, they do not go in the property. They go in the back of the house, they go on the porch, and we only bring in what we are currently using. We also do well inspections. Now again, I'm a redundant guy. I use this for our flow. That dryer gauge has to be calibrated or replaced every year to be certified. Then we use basically a gauge from the city. That way I have a double. This, I know how many gallons I've pumped. I know how many gallons a minute I do there. So I'm pretty much covered. My numbers should add up the math. If one breaks, I still have it. So I didn't waste my time. There's a hard hat. When you're doing new construction, if you're outside, you typically have to wear a hard hat. We send out a seller's notice on every inspection. We have a builder's notice when we're doing new construction. That blue tape Lon was talking about, a lot of builders will not allow you to put blue tape on. So we always ask. If they do, then we can use blue tape. If they don't, we don't put it on. There's a little sea snake. You know, we use that once in a while when we're trying to see behind a furnace or things like that.
Can't see it, Jim. Pan down a little bit.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. And there we have a 9-foot cable for it. Now over here is my sewer camera. And here's the easiest to use locator in the business. So that is probably the highest paying ancillary service in the business. It pays really good money. It takes you about 15 minutes. And unlike radon, you don't have to go back to the property. Here, tie-off gear for the roof. Most jurisdictions now require a roof tie-off hook at anything 612 or over. Remember, you still have to safely get to that tie-off. So if you can use a valley or something like that, the pitch is half, so it's safe. But you still need to get there. So if the roof isn't safe, you don't walk it. use a pole, use a drone, use your binoculars. Now, we use the painter stick for our sure shot. I've also taken rollers, paint rollers, and cut them off and made 90 degrees. I've made picks on them. So I can check if a gutter's loose. I can check chimney, things like that, chimney flashings. So we use that painter stick for a lot of things besides just the pole. But so a couple of the other things that you may want to get if you're going to do anything odd. Here's my witching rods. They're just wires. I do well inspections. And a lot of times people want to find out where their septic tank is. You would be amazed how many times I have found a well that is underground with these wires. Don't try to explain how it works. You never will. But if you trust the rods, they'll tell you where it is. So funny thing about that is if you do it, the first time your client sees that it actually works, they tell everybody. We get 90+% of our business for client referrals. Little things like that is why we get those referrals.
Hey, Todd asks Jim, what is the name of that camera that you were looking at?
That's Subtech, and it is sold through Inspector Outlet. It's the only camera he sells on there, but it's the Inspector series. They were known by Vision, but there was a partner, and when they split the partnership, they changed the name to Subtech, but it's the same camera system as Vision's been using since 1991. They're one of the oldest camera manufacturers in the book. And that camera there, the owner of Subtech actually came out and met with Ben, myself, Nick, and Nikolai, and we designed that camera at the House of Horrors. So we designed it so it would go through an 1.5 inch stack. It'll go through a 2-inch clean out. It'll go through a 3-inch clean out. Because as a home inspector, we can't legally pull toilets. So we have to have those options of where we can do the scope. It has a self-leveling camera head. It has a 10mm cable, which is a little thicker than most, but not as thick as the 200. So it'll push the distances much better than a 3/8 inch cable. So there's a couple things there that were just specific that they designed it just for us home inspectors.
Gregory says he uses cougar paw boots to walk on the roof. Do you use cougars?
I do not. I use Docker dress shoes and or nuns. They have a rubber sole on the bottom, and they are the best roof shoes I've ever done. So, you know, we wear the polo shirts. We have a certain look we go by. I have heard those work pretty good. But like I say, I can walk a 612 without even thinking about it with the street shoes.
Yep. Cool. All right. And John says Lowe's has the best price for little giant ladders.
And as long as you go a 3A, 375 weight, you know, the Little Giant's a good ladder. The Grill is a good ladder. Warner's a good ladder. As long as they're all that rating, all of them are good ladders. So, you know, I like the Little Giant because of the name.
Yeah.
But people kind of recognize it. But if you're just trying to get a good ladder, as long as you stick with that rating, one of those three, you're in great shape.
I like your ideas of, you know, in COVID, using new booties every time and keep them the tool bags outside.
Yeah, really we're just trying not to. We don't want to be, you know, involved in infecting a house. Yep. You know, we're supposed to, you know, be professionals here.
All right, Ray, I think you're up next.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to cover some specialty systems that I use. And I'm with Jim there, you know. Always carry the disinfectant wipes now. Don't forget your mask. But the one thing that I do is I carry in my truck some extra masks for the client. So if they show up and they don't have one, I've got some for them. You know, I've basically got a basic essential list that you really need if you leave your house in a hurry and you don't want to forget anything. So, you know, on my list, You know, I've got my ladders. I got this multi-tip screwdriver. Don't leave home without that. Flashlight. I'm using the ones from the inspector outlet as well. This is an 800 lumen. Camera, tablet, or smartphone. Everybody's doing their reports differently. I'm still the old school style, so I'm using a camera. And I always carry a backup camera. Moisture meter. I've got the X-Tech. This is the two prong style. You get these at inspector outlet. They're pretty reasonable. Receptacle testers. I carry a spare and my primary, but I also have the Kline. I like this one because I can test AFCIs with this as well. This is kind of in between what Jim uses and the basic plug-in tester. These are about 45 bucks. Tape measures, we talked about that. I always carry a spare. I carry one for the client. Knee pads for the crawl space. Also for a crawl space, I always carry Tyvek suits. It's a great way to keep clean. When you get out of it, you just take them off and you're good to go on to your next inspection. N95 respirator. Typically, I like to wear these in a crawl space because it keeps the air a little cleaner. Or if I'm up in an attic, I like to use this as well. Got our mask here for the COVID-19 combustible gas detector. This is an X-Tech that I carry. It's the little pin style. And if you're just starting out, these are real reasonable, but you got to have something for combustible gas detection. I carry the pliers. I carry some side cutters too. I know that part of our scope doesn't really cover central vacuum systems, but this is how I test those. You open the lid on the outlet, stick this in there, and you cross the two pins, and it'll turn the vacuum system on. This is one specialty thing that some guys don't have. This is a pair of binoculars that have embedded digital camera inside. So I can actually take pictures with these from a very far distance away. These are Bushnells. These are more expensive, but they're pretty handy to have. I've got a C3 infrared camera. When I get ready to take the dead front off the electrical panel, I do a scan with this. So I can see any hot spots that might be inside first before I remove that cover. I've got a multi-tester. This is what I use to test 240 volt outlets. This is a Fluke. You don't need anything quite that expensive. This little jewel here is it's a camera pole. It's only 6 feet long. Extends out. And what I use this for, it's got multi-functions actually. If I'm on an old house that only has a really small attic access that I can't get past, I can attach my camera onto this end and I can stick it up in there and I can take photos 360 degrees in that attic space. But primarily I use this for testing smoke detectors. And I realize that that's not part of our scope, but I do test them. So I don't have to carry a ladder around the house to test them. Those 9-foot ceilings, those vaulted ceilings, this works great. Always carry a spare flashlight. This is a blacklight flashlight. And I carry this because I've had clients ask me to look for pet urine damage. They know they can smell it in the house, but they can't identify where it's at. So I use this to try and find those spots in the carpet or wherever the case might be. One little thing I do carry is I got a little first aid kit for my truck. Everybody should have one of those. Don't forget your chargers for your cameras. Take those with you. My vehicle that I'm driving now is a 2019 Nissan Frontier. and I was listening to Jim's experience with his accident. Mine's got a bed extender in the back. It's made out of pipe, and it can be flipped over to the front, and it extends all the way to the front. So actually, it works as, it can also add protection from the bed to the back of the cab. So if I carry anything loose back there, I just got that additional attachment point where nothing can get pushed back into the cab. One thing that you might want to consider is a little torpedo level. This is a pretty handy tool to carry with you. Check doors that are out of level, that might not close. Check floors that might be heaved. You know, sometimes you walk across the floor, you can feel that where it's heaving a little bit. You can check the floor, see if it's level. You know, my ladders, I've got a 6-foot fiberglass Werner. This is what I use to get in attic spaces. And I've got my telescopic ladder. This particular one here goes up to about 15 feet. I use that to get on 1-story roofs. Like I said before, I got the extender pole. This is conductive, but I do have a video camera on top. This is what I use for those roofs that I can't walk safely. I do have a drone. I don't use that drone very much. This is the same radon tester the other guys are using. This is 1027 Sun Nuclear. This thing's practically bulletproof. I've been using these for over 10 years. Never had any failures whatsoever. Remember to get them recalibrated every year. Bore scope. I've got 2 of these. I got one with a 6-foot cable, and I got another one with a 9-foot cable. They don't get out of the truck too often, but boy, they sure are handy to have, especially if you want to check for a leak under a dishwasher. So essentially, that's it with mine. You know, don't forget your gloves. Always carry extra gloves. Now, when I'm doing the inspection, I have for years, I wear black nitrile gloves. That's a 2-way protection. It protects myself, and it also protects anything I touch in the house. It doesn't leave any marks, so to speak. But I buy those several hundred at a time. They're more tear resistant. Once I get to my truck, I can pull them off. My hands are clean, so I don't have to worry about any contamination for myself as well as the client or the house. But I've been doing that for years, so it's really nothing special for me. You know, I also carry, I've got a little miniature nut driver kit that I always carry. And I wear a tool vest. I worked for 35 years as an electrician, and I had a tool belt on with a pouch. So hard on your back. So I like the vest because it equalizes the weight on my shoulders and my back. Plus it gives me a lot of pockets where I can put everything. The one I've got is I bought it on Amazon, and it's actually a police tactical vest. And I just kind of modified it a little bit with different pockets and so forth. So I can carry everything pretty much right there. And I also have the water testing kit. This water test kit can do up to 8 parameters of water. And I think that Lon's got one of these too. Do you have one, Jim?
Yep, I do.
Anyway, it's these are distributed by Trusted Water. If I can get it open. Well, having too much trouble with it. You can go online to Trusted Water. They have those. They're not cheap, but they are a good money maker. I usually charge a good amount of money for the full 8-parameter testing. The one thing you can't do is coliform bacteria. You still probably have to take those to a lab for testing. But in terms of testing for lead, copper, total dissolved solids, chlorine, pH, that type of thing, that kit works really well. So
Thanks, Ray. Daniel wants to know, what was that telescopic ladder brand and size?
This is a, let me see if I can get the brand name off of here for him. Extend and Kline is the brand name. And this one will go up to 15 feet, fully extended.
And he also is in your tool vest. Your tool vest. What's the name, or where can you go for a tool vest? What kind of tool vest do you like?
The tool vest I have, I got on Amazon, and it's actually a police tactical vest. It's actually made for policemen, and it's got a lot of pockets, a lot of compartments. And you know, I did add a couple things to it, but essentially that's what it is.
And I like the idea of the black light. Jim and Lon, do you guys use the black light?
I let my clients use it.
Yeah.
If they want to go look for it, they can.
I have a different black light, but yeah, it's a cool tool.
Yeah. And how about EMF? I don't think anybody said anything about an EMF tester. Do you guys test that? Is it a bunch of bull?
I have an EMF meter.
Yeah.
And I offer it, but I don't get too many requests.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I think it depends on where you live. I have never, and I mean not once, had a client ask me about EMFs. But I think that's probably the market I operate in. I know some other markets, for whatever reason, there'll be more interest in that. And so getting a Gauss meter for that, get a pretty good one. Don't definitely do your homework on that, because they're not all equal. So if you're in a market where they want you to measure EMFs, electromagnetic fields, then yeah, get something like that. Heck, you know, you can charge them 20 extra bucks and go around the property and checking the appliances and stuff and see what you're getting.
Be a little careful though, because the science is still arguable.
Don't argue science with them. Just say, here's what the EMF is.
This is what their meter reads.
Yeah.
And speaking of money, there's maybe you guys can talk about how much money you've invested into tools. For me, it's kind of like 3 phases. You've got this first phase where you need the basic tools in order to say, yeah, I'm available to do a home inspection. It's kind of like the flashlight, GFCI, maybe a ladder or something like that. And then there's that second phase of tools that makes you a better home inspector, like the moisture meter, infrared camera. Maybe you can charge more, maybe it's adding value to you. And then there's that third tier of tools that you can think about ancillary services, where it's almost like a standalone inspection, or you do it at the same time, but you're making money with those type of tools, and you're thinking about a return on investment. Why don't you guys talk about spending money on tools?
I think you can start out doing a decent inspection for an investment of 300 to 350 bucks. I mean, what kind of business are you going to make, you know, 60,000 for a $300 investment in tools? I mean, that's just, but I think that next tier, so to speak, is probably in the 7,000 to 8,000 range, maybe up to 12,000. And then that third tier that Ben's talking about, I think is going to be, you know, between 12 and 16,000. Well, actually more than that, if you're getting a really good sewer scope camera, if you're going to do that, you're going to be well north of you know, heck, good camera, and Jim knows more about that.
$7,000 to start.
Yeah, yeah, big money.
Now, I think Lon's very low personally, you know, but Lon and I like to disagree. I would kind of look at it about $2,500 as your minimum to start, because you need a couple ladders and they're a couple $100 a piece for a decent ladder. I would not go to an inspection without a moisture meter. I let the other two gentlemen touch on that. You can get cheap infrared for $300-400. It'll kind of get you started, but the moisture meter is what actually points out that it's wet. So with the electrical testers, you need good cameras. I would expect to spend $2,500 to get my start, and then start spending more. We have $40,000 worth of tools in our truck. Now, I have 2 sewer cameras, which is a big chunk of that. But, if you're going to buy a good infrared, it's $3,000 by itself. So, to start out with, if you spend $2,500, you will have the basic tools. But, if you start getting into radon, each radon monitor is about $1,000 to go with the Suns. If you go a Femtotech, they're $5,000 each. So, there's some more expensive options there. You can lease, you can do different things like that. But, gas leak detector is a couple $100. A good electrical analyzer is a couple $100. So, yes, you can do basically with a screwdriver and a flashlight, you can do an SOP inspection. You can do it. But I'm not sure you're going to want to really put your neck out that far until you spend a little money.
I agree with Jim. You can spend a lot of money, and I talked about my moisture detector, this little X-Tech, but I also have the $850 one as well that I keep in my truck, and this one can measure relative humidity and a whole bunch of other things. But I don't use it that much, but I always have it. But that's one of those higher investment tools that you can get in that second phase or third phase of your business. But the radon meters, like you guys said, is going to be the most expensive. Probably looking at $1,100-1,200 a piece.
I want to say,
Go ahead, Lon.
I think that if you're going to get into doing sewer scopes, first of all, you really need good training. And by the way, as it turns out, Jim has a great course on that.
Thank you, Lon.
I think one's coming up at the end of August. But you really need good training. It's not just going out, spending $2,000 on a cheap camera and shoving it down a sewer line. It's way more than that. And so get the training for that if that's a service that you want to offer.
Just like radon, if you're going to do radon, you should become NRPP certified. It is the acceptable standard. InterNACHI's class is rated for the 16 hours of education, but you still need to do your blinds. You still need to do, your calibrations every year. So I have 8 monitors. Every year 8 monitors has to be calibrated. Every other year I have to go through the blind testing, things like that. So there's an expense to doing those ancillaries, but you're going to find, like in Colorado, if you don't do radon, you're probably not going to get home inspections. So it kind of is a must do ancillary service.
Yeah, there are those essential tools that you need to conduct business, and it sometimes depends upon where you're located, right?
A lot of it.
Yeah. Yep. So again, like we're in Colorado, and you got to have a radon service in place. But what do you think is the most profitable tool to purchase? For me, when I was starting off, I bought a really expensive infrared camera, and I distinguished myself from all the rest, and that really exploded our business. Just choosing that one tool. It made me a better inspector too. Do you have any advice about that? Do you have one tool that would definitely be a huge return on an investment?
I'd say my infrared, my C3, about $600. Thing has paid for itself 50 times over. It's a good money maker, and the radon is as well. But I'd like to mention just one thing, Ben, about radon.
Yep.
To everybody is hang on to your calibration sheets. It's only happened to me one time in 10 years, but I had a home seller request a copy of my calibration sheet.
We've had that too.
Lon, what do you think? Most profitable tool?
On IR, on infrared, I have an E6, FLIR E6, and I think you can definitely do quality inspections with less than that. But I think for serious or trying to do some sort of pro level stuff, an E4 is probably a baseline or a minimum unit. Funny thing about the camera is one time I pull out my FLIR and I'm using it, and then my client watches me, and when I finish, he says, "I agree with everything you did. I designed your camera." And and then the other thing is, I had another client, got my camera out, and he says, "By the way, I'm the 4-state distributor for FLIR." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then minutes later, I hear him talking to his wife, and he says, "Lon has an E6. That's a serious camera." So, you can definitely, get gravitas with your clients with some of the tools you pull out and use. So having some of those extra tools can definitely help you out with the client. But I think for me, the number one money maker is radon as an extra add-on service. I started out, I wasn't really charging enough for radon because I didn't treat it as a money maker. I just treated it as a way to to add on. It's just extra service for a client. And finally, I was counseled by some fellow inspectors to start charging more. And now I make money on most of my radon tests. And keep in mind, radon testing requires 2 trips. One to put it in, sit there for 48 hours, come back and get it. And so, if you're going to do things like radon, make sure you are compensating yourself for the time you spend on that, doing that.
Yeah. What about that, Jim? You teach about sewer scope inspections.
Well,
I'm
going to cover all this.
If you're adding a lot of time to your inspection time, you're not making money. So you got to be efficient with your time and manage that time, right?
Yeah, the way I look at it, I have a love-hate relationship with radon. We have to do it, but my average radon test takes me 2 hours to go pick up the monitor and get home. So I'm getting $75 an hour. I don't like to work for $75 an hour. That's not what we make on our inspections. With sewer scopes, we're making about $600 an hour. It takes me 15 minutes to do a scope. We charge $150 here in Colorado, so we're making $600 an hour. I like that a whole lot better. So, we do radon because we have to do radon. And yes, we do make money because we do it on about 98% of our houses. But the sewer scope, an inspector will do 40,000+ in sewer scopes a year. So that pays for his camera really quickly. IR, infrared, we have a 6, I have a Fluke, and then we have our little one here. I have never figured out a way to make money off infrared. What it does do, though, I think you have to have it because everybody expects it. And like Lon says, the wow, he brings it out, the big one out, and it's actually somebody who works for FLIR. So we like to have top line professional tools because that's our image. I'm going to get most of my business from referrals, and that's what sets us apart. Like we said, with a flashlight and a screwdriver, you can do an SOP inspection. What's going to set you apart so you can charge more? So you're going to get the higher end stuff. Some of it's tools, when you wow people, that's going to make you money. And so, for me, the sewer scope's definitely been the most profitable thing we've ever dreamed up. And you do need to get proper training. And like I say, if you're in the right area, you're going to have to do radon. It's just a fact of life.
Yep. Let's see. Nobody mentioned software. Would that be considered a tool? I don't know. Maybe. But, the phone nowadays is like a walking computer. It takes photos and videos, and you can do an inspection software on it and all that stuff. What software do each of you use? Why don't you do a shout out for your software?
Well, I wrote my own program, so I do my own. So I'm kind of a geek like that. So I'll let Ray and Jim expound on that more.
What are you selling it for, Lon? What are you selling it for? Go ahead, fellas.
I'm using Spectora. I've been using it now for a couple of years. Had pretty good luck with it. I also use it on commercial inspections. I've developed my own templates. You know, in terms of ease of use, you know, I used to use an old ProSite system, but it was pretty slow. Took a long time to do. These are pretty quick. I can also do them on site if I want with a tablet. But like I say, I'm still doing the old school stuff. I take pictures, take them back to the office, download them, and do my reports at my PC so I can check for my spelling, my edits, and everything before sending them out.
Jim, what do you use?
Well, I use a Motion tablet. It's a military grade F5. So it's a Windows 10 device. We have a docking station in the truck. We have a docking station in the office. So I don't transfer anything from computer to computer. When it gets put to bed in the office, it does back up. And you guys got to think about backup because you are going to have a catastrophic failure and you're going to lose everything. It's going to happen. So we back up to a server that stores in two places, then we back up to the cloud. So as soon as we put it in the docking station, everything is backed up. But you know, there's good softwares. You got HomeGauge, you got Home Inspector Pro. I've been using 3D since 2007. So I think there's some softwares that have a lot more bells and whistles now, but you got to remember, you're going to spend a lot of time making that software your own. I probably had 500 hours into it, and we compile and make changes constantly. So check them all out and figure out whose you like the best, because you're going to be stuck with it for a long time. And it's not easy to change over to somebody else's software. So try to find somebody who's keeping up. You know, they're doing all the upgrades. Do they have video? Do they have all the latest and greatest features? Because if they don't, they're probably going to be obsolete in time.
Yep. You know, in the masterclass that I teach online, it's a free online class with coaching sessions. We talk about time management. So we're talking about all these tools. You know, you'd be carrying buckets and bags and vests filled with tools to every job and every front door. So you got to manage your time. You got to watch what you're bringing. You're bringing a lot of stuff to the front door. I always had a tool bag of the most commonly used tools. But in my truck, I was ready to turn around because while I'm here, I could do another, maybe a mold swab. I could do, you know, a different kind of radon test or something. So I brought everything in the vehicle. You don't bring everything to the front door necessarily. Here's two more tools that my buddies didn't mention, and I use them. I've been using these. So this is a Hydro Shark. It has, it's a moisture meter, right? But, you know, I'm fat and old and I don't want to bend down and touch the carpeting. So it'll give me, with these two probes, an audible and a signal, because home inspectors, we don't care what the actual measurement of the moisture is or the relative humidity, which is another tool. So I'll just go around the basement in the corner and this will probe through the carpeting and the padding. Also can reach up to things that I can't reach for myself. So it's like an extendable kind of moisture meter. Also, this is a gardening tool. This is a 3-tine hoe. I heat up and straighten out one of the tines so I can probe it. It's also extendable, so I can do some grabbing of things, and I leave the hooks so that I can grab insulation at the band rim joist area, pull back, maybe underneath the deck flashing area to look for moisture, maybe boom, 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 hit it, and then put it right back with those hooks. Nobody knows that I was moving insulation. Not required to according to the standards, but I always do. I move insulation all the time. So this is actually a gardening tool. These two tools you can find on my actual, my wife's website, inspectorcoach.com, inspectorcoach.com. And I'll leave that link on the chat box. Fellas, I wanted to thank you so much. Does anybody have any last words you want to get in? I don't want to end it without giving everybody a chance to say something.
Well, I'll speak first. If you're a new inspector, just remember, you're going to spend at least as much time writing the report as you do at site. There is no getting around that until you develop your software and got really proficient at this. So when I first started doing home inspections, before I used the tablet, I used to spend 3 hours at a 2,000 square foot house, and then I'd spend 3 hours on the computer. That's part of paying your dues. Once you start developing your drop downs, you'll see the same thing, 5 times a week. You'll write the verbiage you like. But just understand that's going to take some time. And there's no real shortcuts to becoming a good inspector. You have to put in your dues. And, those of us that have been doing it, I'm 15 years, going on 16, Lon's 22, it's a very rewarding business, but it takes some time to get there.
Yep.
I agree with everything Jim said. It's I think that the other thing for a new inspector is don't be in a hurry. You just, in fact, when I was starting, that was probably the number one thing I did wrong was I just, in fact, I could do a 3,000 square foot house in an hour and a half. Today, I can't even, I kind of wonder what I was looking at. And somehow I never got in trouble, but the point is, I don't get out of that same house under 3 hours ever anymore. So don't be in a hurry, take your time. And one of the biggest things for a newbie is you don't have to be the complete expert. If your client says, you walk out of a room and the client says, what was that stain in the corner? And you're like, oh, I didn't see it. It's okay to say, let's go look, and turn around, go back and say, oh yeah, that. And you can take your time with things, and also tell people that, in fact, even today, after all these years, I still see things for the first time. Technologies change, things are done differently, or people just do something funny or weird. And so it's fine to tell your clients, you know what, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at right here, but I'm going to do some research on it. I got some friends call. You'll see the results of that work in the report when I send it to you this evening. And by the way, I think all three of us do our reports off-site. We don't try to finish the report on site. For me, I just write a better report in the quiet of my home office, where I can, if I want to write an essay, I can leisurely write out that essay without being hurried in the house, for instance. And I can review my report and make sure it's saying everything I want it to say. So a couple of things there that it's okay, in my opinion, to tell a client, yeah, I'm going to do, that's a little unusual. I'm going to do some additional research on that to see what it is exactly going on there.
I agree with Lon. When you're starting up, take your time. You'll eventually learn what's really the most important parts of the house. Make sure you don't miss. Develop a routine. Make that routine and just keep it and use it every time, so you get used to looking at the same thing, and so you don't miss anything. I know you're going to run into those odd houses where running your routine is going to be difficult, but try to stick to that. And I agree with both of the guys about doing the reports on the PC. It also allows you the opportunity to look up some research if you have to. If there's something you don't know about, or you're looking for some verbiage about a certain item, you can look it up on the internet, and you've got that opportunity to do that.
Well, fellas, I really appreciate how you took the time out to share your thoughts about tools and a few other things. There's nothing better than seeing some instructors who are also mentors, who are also master inspectors, share what they know. That's how we get better and how we support each other. So I really appreciate it. Really thank you each, Ray, Lon, and Jim. Really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you everybody for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on the contact page. If you want to reach out directly to these fellas, I can give you that link as well. And I really appreciate everybody attending, and thanks fellas again for sharing. Really appreciate it. Stay
Stay
safe
healthy.
and
Have a good day.
healthy.
Be safe.
All right. Bye everybody. See ya.